I so highly recommend a Sabbath renewal program for clergy. I think that in our society, it is the most demanding work, and too many of my colleagues have gotten burnt out over the years. This opportunity to get some rest will not only renew the pastor, but when the congregation welcomes him or her back, they will be pleasantly surprised by the renewed enthusiasm, the gratitude. When a congregation gives their pastor the blessing of, oh, sure, you deserve this, you should do this, and we're going to do what we need to do with that $15,000 that is given from the $50,000 grant, we're going to use that to make sure that we're also resting and renewing. And don't worry about preachers. Don't worry about worship leadership. We'll take care of it all. I strongly feel that both are mutually benefited. There's no doubt. And so if congregations are kind of on the fence, I would ask them to consider calling Westminster and speaking to members of my church and listening to their rationale why they have provided Sabbath renewals for me. And I'm pretty sure they'll be convincing because they have benefited so much.
The sabbatical plan was authored by Pastor Karen and Angie Belmont with a lot of check-ins with me and my wife Linda.
So there's a professional side of grant writing, meeting goals and objectives, et cetera. And then there's the personal side, telling your story.
So we would kind of like reality check the program to see if it was really doable. So I have a reputation as the question guy, so I ask a lot of questions. And I think that helped fine tune it, and we came up with a really wonderful sabbatical program.
Yeah, one of the things that I think has been so fascinating for me, experiencing a Sabbath renewal time, I grew up in churches that the Sabbath was just not a thing. The pastor never left. That would be, like they'd take a weekend. But because of that, the church was very centered around the pastor. And you had a board of elders, but still that was a very hierarchical model. And I feel like one of the things that has been really fascinating to be a part of this Sabbath renewal program, and just seeing Sabbath in general is the way that like it's an opportunity for the church to like remember and practice. And for me, like it was really stepping into leadership, like realize that, oh, there's agency here. Like if I don't do it, no one will. There's not a pastor who's going to just step in and fill in the cracks. And that's empowering.
I'm thinking about during the Sabbath time and how important our music is. And our music and worship team, do a good job of creating, this music that embodies what the message is about, but also giving that grace during the ceremonies and during the services to touch on, why the Sabbath is needed, why Pastor Karen is away, resting, recuperating, and then offering up suggestions and ideas to others.
It was not a daunting process by any stretch. We made sure that everybody had a say and that, the writing, I'm not a writer. I just tell the story with the idea that they like it or they won't like it. And if they don't like it, maybe we'll try again. And this was good experience in doing this. So we would certainly welcome to give anyone any assistance that they would need in the grant writing or the process that we went through or whatever.
My experience in this Sabbath that we were able to do through this grant was to be thoughtful about taking a deep dive into what's the stuff that we wouldn't even normally have resource or space or time or permission to give ourselves to take the break to learn to do, so we could incorporate it into and helping it propel us to the new version of who we're called to be in doing the work on this corner.
I don't think I would have come to that almost even responsibility. I think there's a claiming that happened because of the space that the Sabbath renewal opened up.
So because I have Pentecostal roots, I'm proud to say I'm a Presbycostal, Presbyterian and Pentecostal. It was my father's legacy that opened the door for me to be hired as the youth director of a Presbyterian church, Spanish-speaking church in Los Angeles. A friend of mine met that pastor, Hector Delgado, and he told him my name, and he said, "Karen Hernandez from New York, is she anything like her father?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "We want her here." And so I was the youth director, and it took just a few months for him to one day, as we were sharing the office space, for him to look at me and say, "¿Tú has pensado en el ministerio de ordenación? Have you thought of the ordained ministry?" And I looked at him and I said, "No, and why not?" And I remembered, I never met a woman pastor in the Pentecostal church. And all these other reasons why not. But at that moment, his question revealed God's call. When I married a year and a half after I started at Westminster, I asked Westminster to provide me with maternity leave, and they didn't hesitate. When it was my 20th anniversary, I asked them to provide me with a sabbatical, and they supported that. The reason why is because when my girls were 4 and 2, it was the first summer I ever took 4 consecutive weeks off. When I did so, I went to Chautauqua in New York. And so my girls were in programs for themselves. My husband's also a pastor. He and I got to worship every Sunday, every morning. And then we got to go to workshops and lectures. When I returned back to Westminster and the leadership saw how renewed and refreshed I was, they said, "Karen, you have to do this every year." So thanks to the Sabbath Renewal Grant, I got to return to Puerto Rico, where my parents were born, and to see the mountain where my father had a very holy experience. He one day came down from the mountain with tears coming down his eyes, and my mother said, "What's wrong with you?" They had just married, and so they were living at his parents' home, working in the farm. And he told my mother, "God has told me that I'm not a farmer, I'm a pastor, and we need to move to New York." And that is where my father's pastorate grew tremendously. And so to reconnect with his pilgrimage and to go to his hometown And to hear stories from my cousins about how he impacted their lives got me back in touch with my Pentecostal roots that I say I'm proud of. And so I wanted to acquire the discipline, not like his, of praying 3 hours a day. I always teased people. I said, yeah, he could pray 3 hours a day because my mother was taking care of the 12 children at home. But that I wanted to use this Sabbath to adopt different ways of spiritual disciplines that might add up to 3 hours a day, but not just 3 hours a day on my knees. And so I added liturgical dance. And my teacher came all the way from Trenton because I was able to pay her. And she came with her husband. And while my girls and my daughter's godmother were at the beach in Puerto Rico, I was taking liturgical dance in the mornings. So I also got to spend time with my girls. I mean, when you're a full-time pastor, you often don't have a lot of time with just family. So going back to Puerto Rico to follow in my father's and my mother's footsteps exceeded my expectation because of the intimate conversations that I got to have with family. I mean, I'm a Nuyorican. That's a Puerto Rican born in New York. This is a family I didn't know. And so to hear the stories of the impact that my dad made on my cousin, for instance, he said to me, Karen, I became the representative of San Juan because of your father. When my dad kicked me out, your dad said, can he come with me to New York? And I went to New York and my life changed. Your dad told me look at all those freckles on your face. Each one of them is a virtue. One of the reasons this is such a special place is because this chapel at the Sterling Castle is one of the first chapels where Presbyterians worshiped. When I was younger and the pastor's wife said to another youth person, when Karen speaks, people listen, I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't want to have that power. That's too scary. But what the Sabbath did was reveal to me during this time, what God revealed to me is, Karen, I need you to be a truth teller, And I need you to know that I am going to use you in this way. I'm 61, and it's now or never. And so I was able to do the work through journaling, through the meditations, like I said, to crystallize what I'm supposed to do in the next chapter of my ministry. What makes my heart sing? Even as I think about it, tears well up. What makes my heart sing is to worship God. And so when I'm on sabbatical, even when I'm on vacation, I don't take a vacation from Sunday worship. I look for the nearest place where I could sit down and I could hear God's word and I could sing the hymns and I could be fed. What makes my heart sing is dancing. So it isn't just liturgical dance, which I'm still learning, but it's getting in touch with my Latine roots. It's salsa, it's merengue. What makes my heart sing are other people. To be able to sit at table and break bread and have a glass of whatever people want to drink at that time. But it's like a holy time. Those moments are holy times.